Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dane, your host. Hope you're doing great wherever you may find yourselves. Blessings to all of you wonderful people out there. In light of the recent news that KISS has yet again decided to unretire for what I think to be the third time, correct me if I'm wrong, I would like to share with you, discuss with you, weigh in on what is KISS's legacy overall. And in order to do that, I'm going to talk a bit about the band's history and definitely do a deep dive into their entire discography. All of their studio albums will be discussed in some fashion, and to some degree, much, but not all of their live material. And then even after that, I'm going to weigh in on the metaphorical scales of Zeus, if you will, as to whether or not KISS's legacy is still strong, or has it been really tarnished and blemished in a serious way. So let's get started. So, as you know, we see from the debut album that there's a gimmick involved, makeup. And so shock rock comes to mind, glam rock comes to mind, and this is the beginning of what has been called their silver and black phase. And Paul went through, kind of a identity crisis with respect to his alter ego, if you will, at first doing the Bandit and then the Star, and I think he went back to the Bandit briefly, don't quote me on that, and then finally settled in on the Star. Of the four makeup choices, my least favorite, and many a person, fan and critics alike have criticized his choice, because compared to the other three, it's a bit weak. I like it better than the Bandit, and you see that Peter's makeup is different from what it evolves into, because he had a professional come in and do that, and that's a very difficult version of the Catman to do. And Gene and Ace's evolve over time as well. Gene's gets more spiky, and Ace loses the silver in his hair, and the silver is less shiny, if you will. And then later on in the Dynasty period, you have the eyeshadow, the varying colors, the purple, green, blue, and I guess sienna for Gene, I do believe. So if we talk about this album, the debut, like so many debuts, a bit unpolished and raw. And of course, the production has been widely criticized, and rightfully so. But you have some wonderful songs here: Strutter, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse, Cold Gin. All four of those make KISS alive. Let Me Know, perhaps the popular song on the outside looking in. I think it's a popular song, but compared to those other four, not as popular. And then Kissin' Time is essentially a song that most people, shy away from. It's not very good. Deuce is wonderful, of course. The love theme from KISS, also like Kissin' Time, not very noteworthy. And then you get the wonderful 100,000 Years, and then Black Diamond. You have 10 songs, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of these make the Alive album. So not a great album, not a stellar album, but this is what I would call a debut album that is a must own, despite the fact that there are better versions on the live album that comes. And then, of course, we get the sophomore effort, which of the original trilogy from the band is my favorite and argued by many their best. Now, having said that, had this been better produced, this would be better than the second album. Why so many people say this is better than the first? It's because while the production still sucks or is subpar, it's not as bad as the first. And you don't have an album that isn't good from start to finish. This album is great from start to finish with respect to all the songs being memorable, that sort of thing. Again, you got a couple songs on here, or maybe even 3 songs on here that people, stay away from, including Let Me Know. But here, a great album from start to finish. As you know, Gene and Paul did not drink. That's part of their moral compass, or lifestyle rather is a better choice of words. Although for the photo shoot here, Paul, from what I understand, did drink some champagne and explaining why he never drank again. But yeah, you have some great songs here. Got to Choose, Parasite, the sometimes underlooked Going Blind, Hotter Than Hell, Let Me Go Rock and Roll, so that's side one. And of those, you have 1, 2, 4 of them make the live album alive. And then side 2, All the Way, Watching You, Mainline, Coming Home, and Strange Ways. And Watching You is the only one here that makes the album, the live album, alive. But All the Way is great. So is Mainline, a song about addiction, of course. And Coming Home later on makes one of their later live albums. More on that later. And Strange Ways, what a great way to end the album. So this is, from a music standpoint, not the production standpoint, this is a great album. Nice album cover, right? Then to end the trilogy, you get Dressed to Kill. They all had to borrow suits, I believe, is the story that I understand. Or maybe one of them had a suit, but the other 3 did not, so they had to borrow a suit. Compared to the other 2, this is my least favorite, but you have some cool songs here. Room Service and Two Time are songs I liked as a kid. I don't care for them anymore. Ladies in Waiting, I could do without. But Getaway is a stellar song, and I wish this was on Kiss Alive too. It's a great, blues rock, kind of borrowing the ethos from the late 50s or early 60s. Of course, you have the wonderful Rock Bottom here, which goes on to be you have the definitive version later on the next album, but it's really cool here as well. Come On and Love Me is a great song here as well. Anything for My Baby, I think, is an overlooked track that I just love. She is wonderful. Love Her All I Can is wonderful, and of course, minus the guitar solo, Rock and Roll All Night, a little subpar compared to the anthemic version on the live album, but I like it here as well. And this trilogy is so important because these first 3 albums, well, if we talk about what songs on this make it onto the next album, you have Rock Bottom, Come On and Love Me, She, and Rock and Roll All Night. So 4. So you have 4 from this album make the live album, 5 from the previous album, and then 7 from the debut. So the debut, from a song standpoint, the strongest, you could argue, with respect to hits because of this album. And of course, when you bought this on vinyl when it first came out, you got, this is a historic, iconic album cover. In the back as well has become iconic. The people in the back have talked about how they made KISStory, so to speak. You got some wonderful photos. I wish I still had this on vinyl. Wonderful photos here. Great picture of Ace. And this is really cool. And you got their little notes to the fans, which I appreciate even now, but I liked them more when I was a kid. Some people think they're cheesy, but I think they're kind of cool. And this is, as we all know now, that this was a live recording that was touched up in the studio. I don't have any problems with that. This entire album contains 16 tracks, and for me, they're all the definitive versions of said 16 tracks, despite the fact that they're on here, and here, and here. But these are worth having. Let me go on record and to say that now. Okay. And it's around this time that us 9-year-olds, because it was 9 years old. I'm sorry, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm 9 years old. When this comes out, I get it as a Christmas present from my mom, along with my new stereo. Thank you, Mom. I love you. But this is one of the most iconic live albums of all time. This is one of the most iconic rock albums of all time. This album by itself has its own legacy within the realm of Kiss. We all know that. And so this album will go down in history for rock music fans, hard rock music fans, as one of the greatest albums ever released. If you're a Kiss fan, of course, or You like hard rock music and you like Kiss. That set of fans. Now, despite the fact that they were touched up in the studio, there's some anthemic stuff here. There's just some fun, all around great tunes, even if they're not anthems. For example, Watching You is not an anthem, but it's got a punch to it. It lends itself to what the band is going for. They're definitely got the right people surrounding them to help them become the band that they want to be, which is, of course, you've got the greatest band in the world, whatever that opening line is. You wanted the best, you got the best. Something like that, right? I forget. But, the legendary Cobalt Hall on the back here, it was recorded other places as well. In Detroit. More of that later. But you can't ask for anything better if you're a Kiss fan. 16 songs back-to-back 16 times, just fabulous. There's nothing, there's no flaws. There's no, bad moments here. Again, touched up in the studio, of course. It's a studio album. It's not a studio album, but it's a wonder. It's a wonder of the music world. My only complaint is I wish they would have put Rock and Roll All Night last and put Let Me Go Rock and Roll before that. But other than that, it's a perfect album. So, the iconic album that is Kiss Alive 1, and at this time, of course, we've really got the youth, like myself, 9 years old, coming in, make of that what you will, for good or ill. You've got, songs that are full of rife with innuendo, and, had my mom known what was lyrically on these albums, she probably wouldn't have let me listen to this. But regardless of that, for good or ill, you have kids involving in themselves, very young kids getting involved in loving this band. So that's a plus. And then, of course, how do you follow up something as wonderful as that live album? You get Destroyer. And, of course, the success rises even more because of songs like Detroit Rock City and, of course, the ballad Beth, right? Originally, Detroit Rock City was the single and Beth was the flip side, and then they flipped it and made Beth the single and Detroit Rock City the B-side, according to some sources. The most iconic for many, not for me, but Gene Simmons songs is on here. God of Thunder. Great Expectations is a song I can do without. It doesn't belong on this album, I think, because it doesn't go with the shtick and flow of the album. King of the Nighttime World is a great opening guitar technique from Ace. Flaming Youth, a nice anthemic song. Sweet Pain is okay. Shout It Out Loud, the anthem to follow up the anthem of anthems, which is Rock and Roll All Night. It's not as good as Rock and Roll All Night, but it's good. It's not something I gravitate towards so much, but it's a good song. Beth, I Still Love to Death. And Do You Love Me is very heavy for a band like Kiss at this time. Very hard rock, very edgy. And at the end of that, you have that weird, later on, a different version became a separate song where it's just kind of like, I don't want to say noise, but like feedback and some hushed vocals that are kind of creepy sounding, right? Kind of like E5 I50 from Black Sabbath, kind of. It's okay. But Do You Love Me is a great song. It shows that Kiss can still rock in the way that it did on their first three albums. But the production here is better, although it's been critiqued by some. I'm not going to talk about this is the 2 CD version, but anyway. So this was a nice follow-up to Dressed to Kill, but of course it pales in comparison to the live record that preceded it. And again, how can you expect all bands to deliver, back-to-back marvels and legendary albums? This is a legendary album, but compared to Alive 1, it pales in comparison is what I mean. Sorry for the confusion. All right. And what comes next for me is, I think, their masterpiece of a studio album, And that, of course, is Rock and Roll Over, one of the greatest album covers of all time, but also, I think, one of the greatest Kiss albums of all time. My favorite Kiss album of all time. And I remember like it was yesterday, my grandpa bought this for me. He said, let's go to the mall and buy you some music. Okay. And I remember playing this as a young man on my sister's Mickey Mouse turntable, if you can believe that. And you have wonderful pairings with I Want You and Take Me, as if Take Me is answering to I Want You. Some heavy stuff here. I love the way that I Want You ends with the ah, and then in the song you have Ace doing some amazing feedback / type riffage going on with the whammy bar like that, right? It's great. Calling Dr. Love, perhaps Gene's best song vocally. Ladies Room, and then it's a really cool song. And then Baby Driver, you get that raspiness from Peter on vocals. It's heavy. I love it. Love 'Em and Leavin' is a great song from Gene and Paul. Mr. Speed, a Paul song, is really cool. It's not Paul at his best, but it is a cool song. See You in Your Dreams is a nice, catchy pop rock song, if you will. It's very memorable. And then you get the wonderful song written for Rod Stewart that he rejected. So the story goes. I'm glad he did, because Peter does it amazingly. I'm glad that we have another Peter song here. And then you get, to close the album, the wonderful, heavy, Fast and Furious for Kiss, Making Love, 3 minutes and change. And so this is a wonderfully produced album. Perhaps the album cover of album covers, even after this. These are probably the two most favorite album covers of the band. The art that goes with Kiss is important to their legacy to some degree. But before we move on to the next album, which of course is Love Gun, you know that you have the Kiss Army. I'm not sure at what time that the Kiss Army was launched. I want to say, if I had to guess, around the time that the third album came out, Dressed to Kill, or definitely around the time that the first live album came out, Alive. And I joined as a young man. My mom, paid for it, and you got photos of the band and newsletters about new releases coming out. I remember when this came out, they said that the album might be called Love Tunnel, and it wasn't. It's Love Gun, thank God. And you got the little pop gun that came in it, right? So, but we'll get to this album. But the Kiss Army demonstrated that the band was really taking off, and people were, spending money hand over fist to buy lunchboxes. So the marketing and board games, I had the Kiss board game, and there was a pinball machine, and which was really expensive, and T-shirts, out the wazoo. And this is back in the day when T-shirts would shrink from the tour. You'd go to the tour, you'd go to the concert, you get the shirt, you throw it in the dryer, and then it would shrink 2 sizes, right? You don't have that anymore. The only Kiss T-shirt I had growing up as a kid, I have one now, the Alive shirt, and the 2 versions of the Rock and Roll Over shirt. I forgot what I was saying, but excuse me. So I saw Kiss live for the Lick It Up tour, but I'll get to that. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying about T-shirts, but regardless, the Kiss Army is so important because you see that people are really sinking their teeth into their band, and the band is really taking off, even more so, of course, because of Kiss Alive and because of Destroyer. People could not wait after that live album to, what's the next studio band album going to be? And they ate it up, and of course they ate this up as well. These are wonderful albums. And so back to the marketing. I had the lunchbox. My friends had the lunchbox, 9 years old, 10 years old, 3rd and 4th grade and beyond. And, you had the Kiss comic books. I had the first collection of that where they're superheroes in the Marvel Universe. So again, they're really taking off. And, the marketing stuff I will talk more about later. But the marketing, as you'll see, is a double-edged sword. Does that help the legacy? Does it tarnish? But at this stage in the band's history or KISStory, it's really helping the band because the marketing helps, get people to go, well, who's that? If they don't know them, I want to, invest or research and get involved and see what's what, right? That kind of thing. All right. So finally, you get this 1977. So at this point, I'm 9 years old. And you got some heavy songs in here. You have I Stole Your Love, and you have Love Gun, which are the two heaviest. Then you get the more poppy stuff with Christine 16, got Love for Sale. You have the wonderful, somewhat heavy Shock Me, which was great to hear Ace on vocals. You get the wonderful pop song Tomorrow and Tonight. Hooligan, we've got Peter back on vocals. It's a great song, if you ask me. Almost Human and Plaster Caster are okay. They're not great. And I love Then She Kissed Me. I think this is a great demonstrating Paul's love for love songs and R&B. Classic Motown has that flavor because it's a cover song from that era, from the 60s era, I believe. So yeah, this is a nice follow-up to Rock and Roll Over, but disappointing in a little way because of songs like Almost Human and Plaster Caster. More on Plaster Caster later. Then you get Kiss Alive 2. Will the second live album be a sophomore slump? No, but it is flawed because it's like Genesis's 3 sides live. You only have 3 sides, that's right, live, and then the 4th side is new studio material, which I do like. And of course, we all get the concept of, well, you want to put out a live album and not have a repeat of, past glories and that sort of thing. So I get that. And you have very little from the first live album. But this is a very good album. Is it great? I would say it's approaching great. You have Detroit Rock City, of course, King of the Nighttime World, so the first 2 tracks from the Destroyer album. Ladies' Room, so we're going way back to the 3rd album, which was not on the first live album, and that's good. Making Love and Love Gun. Calling Dr. Love, of course, you're going to have that. That was a hit. Christine 16, of course, a hit. Shock Me, Thank God It's Here. Hard Luck Woman, another hit. Tomorrow and Tonight, Glad It's Here. And then disc 2, or side C from vinyl, I Stole Your Love. Heavy song, right? Beth, Glad It's Here. God of Thunder, Glad It's Here, I Want You, and Shout It Out Loud. And this time they get it right, and they end the live performance with the anthem, which they should have did for Alive 1. Of course, I've talked about before in a different video, songs that should have been on here, like Baby Driver, and let's see, I Stole Your Love is here. Yeah, Love Gun is on here, so good. All right, I thought so. So yeah, so All American Man, Rockin' in the USA, Larger Than Life, Rocket Ride, in any way you want it. The last 2 are the best, I think. The other 3 are okay, but not great. So Kiss Alive 2, definitely showing that they could put out a true test of, is a band going to stand the test of time? Can they put out another live album or more live albums, and will it be good or better, right? So, and I think this is a very good live album. All right. Now, then the record company historically goes, okay, boys, we want you to all put out a solo album, and you'll dedicate it to the other 3 members of the band. And this is when they assign them colors. Ace is blue, Peter is green, Paul is purple, and Gene is that burnt umber or sienna or whatever, that amber brown color, right? And it's a solo album. It's not a solo album because it has Kiss on it and the name of the band member. So this was a bold move. This was a bold gamble. Has anyone done this before in the history of rock music, where each member does a solo album at the same time, and it's mandated by the record company? And as most people will argue, this is the best of the 4. Paul's would be 2, Gene's would be 3, and Peter's would be 4. There's only one song I like on Peter's, and that is I Can't Stop the Rain, which I think is marvelous. There's only 2 songs or 3 on the Gene Simmons, and one of them makes its way onto a later live album, and Radioactive I do like. I can't remember the 3rd song. But here, this is an album that Paul has Love and Change, which is great, and some other... with respect to Paul's solo album, which I don't have a prop for, I like about half of it. But here, everything's great from start. This is a great start to finish album. Who would think that Ace's would be more popular than Paul's? Before we talk about the tracks, I'm tempted to buy another copy of this so I can take the poster out and frame it. I had all 4 of them as a kid in my bedroom, not framed, but up with tacks on the wall. And of course, here we go. This is so cool. Right? Really amazing. Okay. And then, of course, you've got a picture of the 4 solo albums with the colors, the corona or the aura surrounding them, that color scheme, right? The blue. Okay. This is what helped me paint my face when I wanted to be Ace, and the one on vinyl I had for Peter, the same thing. I've never dressed up as Gene or Paul. Perhaps more on that later. But yeah, the tracks here. Rip It Out is fantastic. It's heavy. Ace is really confident with his vocal styles, with his vocals, with his singing now. He's come out of his shell with respect to that. Speeding Back to My Baby. Great vocal presence here. Snowblind, one of my favorite songs on the album. Ozone, perhaps my least favorite song here, but I do like it. What's on Your Mind, I think, is an underrated gem. New York Groove, of course, the hit from the album, has a Phantom of New York flair to it. Of course, I'm talking about Lou Reed. I'm in Need of Love, a great love song from Ace. You have Wiped Out, which is, an homage to the 50s and surfer rock. And then the wonderful instrumental, his best, Fractured Mirror, almost 5.5 minutes. So again, a bold, historic move by the band to experiment. Of course, the experiment's a failure because only one of the four is really the most. Only one of the 4 shines really bright, and Paul's, to some degree, shines bright as well. And then you have the next album comes out in 1979. Does this have the poster in it? I can't remember. I had all the posters for all the albums. That's that marketing thing that the band does. Yeah, I think the poster's in here. Yep. Really cool. And again, this album is very polarizing. Dee Snider of Twisted Sister fame has gone on record saying that he hates I Was Made for Loving You because it's disco. Gene has done an interview or two where he said, what song by Kiss do I hate the most? Well, it starts off like this. Tonight. Anyway, I love this song. I love this disco song. But it's disco in many ways is a offshoot of R&B, as you know, and Paul doing his R&B thing, his homage again to perhaps Motown and Donna Summer. It works. I love it. Then you have the Rolling Stones cover, 2000 Man, and there's something to be said about how Kiss, while not sounding at all like really the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, Kiss combines the ethos of the Beatles with respect to that when you talk about the original lineup, you have all 4 band members singing at times, Ace and Peter being the George Harrison and Ringo, if you will, in that regard. And then also this band is like the Rolling Stones. Perhaps I'll talk more about this later because the 2 men running the show are Paul and Gene, the Kiss version of the Glimmer Twins. But great album cover. I love this version of 2000 Man. I love Ace's vocals here. Again, Ace is really stepping up to the plate with his confidence and singing. Sure Knows Something, another ballad R&B type style from Paul. I love this song. It's very emotional. It's very captivating. It's a goosebump song for me. Dirty Living. We have Peter on vocals. Glad that Peter's on vocals here. I like when Peter sings. I wish there was more of him and Ace, but it is what it is. Then we have the Gene song, Charisma. Not a big fan of the song for whatever reason. Then you get another wonderful ballad, Paul song, Magic Touch. Paul's vocal aesthetics here. He sounds beautiful here. What else can I say? R&B type song, it's great. Then you get Hard Times, Ace back on vocals, it's great. Real catchy, really demonstrating Ace's, hey, not just about his confidence here, but hey, I can rock out with the best of y'all vocally. And then the song I do like from Gene on here is X-Ray Eyes. This is more of a Gene type song that I gravitate towards. This is what I want from Gene Simmons here. And then you have the Save Your Love with, I want to say it's Ace and Paul sharing the lead. Yes, and then you have Gene and I think Ace in the background singing. But the problem, this is where the wheels begin to fall off with the controversy of really Gene and Paul putting their foot down and not letting Ace and, despite the fact that they're on here vocally, not letting Ace and Peter contribute more to the band. And Peter eventually leaving, and he doesn't play on this entire album, but Ace does. But Ace eventually becomes the new Peter in that regard and doesn't play on some of the things that follow. But I really like this album, despite that it's very polarizing. Next, you get the very disappointing Unmasked. And the only reason I have this is because of 3 or 4 songs on here. Is That You is okay. Why did they stay in the pop rock milieu here and not go back to being heavy like they were? And it's because they wanted to ride the wave of the success of the pop sensibilities of this album, if you will, despite that there's some expected type Kiss songs on here, like the cover song of 2000 Man, Dirty Livin', X-Ray Eyes, and Save Your Love, and Hard Times. Anyway, but here it's even more pop than this is. If you ask me, Is That You is okay. Shandy is the song that's very polarizing. Most people you talk to seem to not like the song. I'm one of those. I don't like. Talk to Me is okay. It's a pop song. It's okay. Naked City is a Gene song. I really like the song. What Makes the World Go Round, I could do without. Tomorrow, great Paul song. This could belong on his solo record. It could belong on any Kiss record in this time period. It would work well with it would go well on. It would fit right with this album, I think. Anyway. Two Sides of the Coin is okay. She's So European, I could do without. Easy As It Seems is good. Torpedo Girl I like, and You're All That I Want is good too. So I keep this only for 4 or 5 songs. And then for whatever reason, we all know the reason. This is then after you get this, Ace is really fighting with the band. Let's return to our heavy roots. And of course, that's shot down. You have Bob Ezrin come on board, and Bob Ezrin, you either like him or you hate him, or with respect to me, with respect to Bob Ezrin, he's done some wonders with the band. He's done some wonders with Alice Cooper, et cetera, et cetera. But he's also, shot the band in the foot. He's the one that really propelled the band to do a concept album or encouraged them. It was Gene's idea. He had an idea. Gene gets the movie bug. He has that movie with Rutger Hauer where he plays a terrorist. He has that movie with Tom Selleck where he plays the bad guy with those metallic spiders. I can't remember the name of the movie. It's awful. The Rutger Hauer movie is actually quite good. But it was supposed to star Christopher Makepeace, and this was supposed to be the soundtrack for the movie. The movie's never done. The treatment, I guess, is rejected by Hollywood. Simmons is disappointed. And you could clearly hear that the band wants to be, The Who on this album, because you have the song Just a Boy, right? And you have, let's see, Mr. Blackwell. So you have a person's name like you have with The Who, and of course, where this fails, thinking Marvel Comics here, the band Wasp, Blackie Lawless, succeeds with their concept album, definitely inspired by The Who's Tommy, and that is The Crimson Idol. But here, this is, and then some people love this album. The only reason I have this is because I like the song Dark Light, A World Without Heroes, and maybe one other song. Otherwise, I'd sell it, get rid of it, give it to Goodwill. I had this on vinyl. When I first listened to it, I hated it. I listened to it 2-3 times. I hated it, except for A World Without Heroes. And then as an adult, I got it and re-listened to it. I say, well, there are 4 songs that I like, so it's worth having. But other than that, it's still, for the most part, a failure. Very lackluster. And Gene and especially Paul have gone on record to say that this was a mistake, an error of judgment. All right. Next is the widely agreed comeback album with Creatures of the Night. There's been different covers of this. You've had the cover with the makeup off. After Lick It Up, you have... you don't have Ace anymore on the cover. You have Kulik, I believe, or Kulik. Ace is not on this album, folks. If you have the box set for this, like I used to, you open it up and it shows you have Bryan Adams contributing to this. You have this Robin Ford, this guitar player, this singer-songwriter, all over the place. So many different people contributing to the album. Is it really a Kiss album? Well, yes and no. You have 9 songs. You have some really good tracks here. To me, it is a comeback album, despite that Ace isn't on it, even though he's in the video. So like the Dynasty, this is to Ace what Dynasty is to Peter. Although the difference is Ace isn't on here at all, except maybe, I think he contributes to 1 or 2 song ideas, but he doesn't play on them. So you have the wonderful title track, Creatures of the Night. Ace got what he wanted, a return to heavy form, but he's not on the album. Saint and Sinners, a good song, not a great. Keep Me Coming, kind of cheesy. Rock and Roll Hell is really cool. Danger's okay. My favorite song in here is I Love It Loud. I Still Love You is phenomenal. Killer's pretty cool. It's not great. And then War Machine, a great Gene Simmons song. So the best songs in here are Creatures of the Night, I Love It Loud, I Still Love You, and War Machine. So 4 out of 9 are stellar. Then some rest of them are okay or just above average. Or 1 or 2 of them are good but not great. Glad to have this in my collection. Okay. Now, I don't have props of the rest because the rest I don't like enough to own, have some of this on MP3. The next, of course, is they take the makeup off and release Lick It Up. Vinnie Vincent has replaced Ace. And let me say, this has some of the typical stuff you want from Kiss and some of the not so typical stuff from Kiss. And by typical, I would say that a song like A Million to One is the typical Paul fairings. The R&B stylings, Motown type-ish love song that would fit it would fit very well on Dynasty. So Gene goes on record to say that the reason they took the makeup off is because you had, what was going to be next. And this is a quote pretty much from MTV days. He said, we didn't want someone to be, Giraffe Man, his words, and that kind of thing. And yet, of course, like so many things Kiss said they would never do, they eventually put the makeup back on because of money. More on that later. So you have a great song in Exciter, a great song in Not for the Innocent. The title track is cool, although it's cheesy. Young and Wasted is okay. Gimme More is okay. All Hell is Breaking Loose is phenomenal. I said A Million to One, my favorite song. Fits Like a Glove's got some heavy riffs going. Dance All Over Your Face and On the Eighth Day I Cannot Stand. And then really after this, I'm pretty much out. Although I kept trying, hoping, this will be great. I had all of this on vinyl at one point, everything in the catalog except for one, which I'll talk about. Animalize, only like one song, and that's Heaven's on Fire, and even that's not a great song. You have Mark St. John on guitar, poor guy, no longer with us. He had a bad life with his medical health and addiction issues. Asylum has 2 really good songs on it, Who Wants to Be Lonely and Tears Are Falling. Again, the stylings of Paul's, R&B type pop love songs. All Night, it's just cheesy, horrible. And if we're going to talk about cheesy stuff, I must include, even though I forgot to write it down, is the Thrashes, Trashes Hits album. You Make Me Something Something is just cheesy badness at its worst. And then you have Let's Put the X Back in Sex, also cheesy at its worst. And then you have The Insult to Peter Criss by having Eric Carr do Beth. I actually like the song, but I refuse to listen to it because I think it's an insult to Peter. No disrespect to Eric. He does a wonderful job with the song, but it's not the Kiss I know and love. It's not the Beth I know and love. So if we talk about Eric Carr for a minute, going back, have to include great drummer. He's the reason why this album sounds so great. But what gets under my skin is the drums are lost in their heaviness because of the type of music you're trying to do here. And of course, same thing with some of the other Carr albums. But I digress a little bit. Eric had the Fox character, which I thought was wonderful. You know, the story of Paul redoing his makeup, or Gene, I think it was Paul, because at first it looked like a chicken and it didn't look good, and Paul fixed it. It looks great. And of course, he had the fox fur around him and the orange in his face. Great comeback character after Peter left the band. And what a great drummer. So I have to give credit. But it's unfortunate that with someone like Eric in the band, you didn't maintain the heaviness that is this. You know, the tank drum is great. Anyway, so Asylum and Animalize to me are for the most part failures, especially Animalize. Crazy Nights, I had this on vinyl. This is where Desmond Child gets his fingers involved in the band some more with the song Reason to Love, which I cannot stand. If you watch this channel, you know by now I am not a Desmond Child fan. Almost not at all. There's a couple places I like him. I like his work with Meatloaf. Maybe that's just it. On that third Bat Out of Hell, which isn't great, but it's got its moments. The title track, Crazy Nights, is okay. A little too pop-ish for me. Bang Bang You is just more cheese, like from Trash's hits and like All Night. The rest of the songs here do nothing for me, but I had it on vinyl. But the only song I will listen to was the one or two I mentioned. With respect to Hot in the Shade, this is a horrible album, I think, but I love the Michael Bolton penned Forever. I think this is a marvelous love song. Then what people consider to be their another comeback album, the second comeback album, is Revenge. I don't get it. The album cover in the back suggests a return to heaviness because you have the steel with the black logo. Looks great, that Kiss logo on the steel behind it. And then the back, they're all in long leather trench coats. They look great, the band does. But the hits off the album are Unholy, Take It Off, Domino, I Just Wanna, and God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too, which I think is a song. It's cheesy, but not cheesy in a innuendo style way. And of course, speaking of cheese, the horrible I Just Wanna, it's horrible. I just wanna sorry, I'm saying it wrong. I just wanna I just wanna forget you. So it's a inverse pun or something. And of course, they don't give credit to the fact that they stole the music from, or lifted the music from the song Summertime Blues, because he sings in the same phrasing as that, even though the lyrics are different. Unholy's okay. Take It Off is cheesy. Domino's okay, but I don't think this is a comeback album at all. Is it better than the albums that came before? Yes, but it's still not very good. In other words, of Animalize and Asylum and Too Hot in the Shade, I would pick Revenge. Well, actually, I would pick Revenge over Night in the Shade. Now I can't remember the name of the album. Night in the Shade, Too Hot in the Shade, whatever. I would definitely listen to Revenge over that, and I would listen to Revenge over Crazy Nights. But I would still pick Asylum over Revenge because of Tears Are Falling and Who Wants to Be Lonely, which I think are great songs. And then, to me, the comeback / reunion is this live album because you have 6 members of KISS in this one stage performance. Of course, you have you have Paul and Gene, of course, and Kulik on guitar, and Eric Singer on drums. But you have special guest Peace and Ace. And this is a real treat. There's a bonus, tracks that don't make this version. You have some bonus tracks, I believe, but not all of them is what I mean, which I do have on MP3 format. But you have Coming Home, Plaster Caster. I like this acoustic version. I don't like the studio version. Going Blind is great here. Do You Love Me as an acoustic piece is great. I love the acoustic version of Domino. Sure Know Something is fabulous here as an acoustic number. War Without Heroes, I like better than the studio version. Rock Bottom is even phenomenal as an acoustic piece. And what's a real treat here is when they're doing the slow part of Rock Bottom, and even though it's all acoustic, it still has a heavy part to it. So if you can imagine that, if you're not familiar with it. But right before it kicks in, he goes, "This is where it gets rough," Paul says, and it's great. See You Tonight from, let's see. Yeah, See You Tonight is from the Gene solo album. That's the other solo song I like from the Gene solo record, KISS solo record. Then you get a wonderful acoustic version of I Still Love You. Every Time I Look at You is a nice treat. 2000 Man, oh, is so great here. And Beth. So you got Ace and Peter singing on vocals, and that's what this is all about, the reunion with them, even though you have Eric and Kulik still here. And then you get a great version of Nothing to Lose with Eric Singer on vocals, which is fabulous here. And then you get a nice acoustic of Rock and Roll All Night to end, and you finally end the live album with Rock and Roll All Night, as you should have done on a live album. All right, great album. Then you get all of these soundboard releases, which I only possess one of them. I've listened to a lot of them from friends who have them, and from when I owned the Creatures of the Night box set, that was from, and they're releasing some more, I believe. They have their moments, but overall, they're not worth owning unless you're a collector. This is the Des Moines 1977 original lineup. So this is the during the tour of sorry folks, drawing a blank here. Of Love Gun, excuse me. Yeah, so you have I Stole Your Love, King of the Nighttime World, Ladies Room, Firehouse, Love Gun, Let Me Go Rock and Roll, Making Love, Christine 16, Shock Me, I Want You, Calling Dr. Love, Shout It Out Loud, God of Thunder, Rock and Roll All Night, Detroit Rock City, Beth, and Black Diamond. Great way to end them. The only reason I own this one is because this, I think, is the best of the ones that I heard. So I said I'll buy it. I haven't listened to it twice. I'm going to give it a third listen tonight, I think, since I'm doing this video. So I haven't decided if this is worth owning or not, is what I meant to say. And as far as live albums go, you have Alive 3, which is disappointing. You have the Symphonic Alive 4, which is okay. Not really big into the Symphonic. But a live album that's worth owning is the Vegas one. You get the video that comes with this, even though this is the return to makeup with the replacement makeup characters of Eric Singer doing Peter's makeup and Tommy Thayer doing Ace. This sounds really cool. You have Detroit Rock City, Creatures of the Night, Psycho Circus, which is a great song, by the way. I'm going to get back to the studio stuff in a minute. War Machine, Tears Are Falling, Deuce, Lick It Up, I Love It Loud is great, Hell or Hallelujah, God of Thunder, Do You Love Me, Love Gun, Black Diamond, Shout It Out Loud, and Rock and Roll All Night. And then you have a bonus video with the acoustic stuff that they did for a small group of fans. This is worth owning, folks. All right, so let's get back to the studio stuff. Carnival of Souls after Unplugged. They did the reunion album, was hoping it would be a true comeback. I said the wrong album. I meant to say Psycho Circus. Psycho Circus is the reunion album with Peter and Ace, but not really, because like the Dynasty album, once again, Peter is not on the whole album. He's on the title track, I believe, and maybe one or two songs, and Ace's songs where he sings are disappointing. there's maybe 2 songs I like, but the true gem of the album is the title track, Psycho Circus, which is a return to form. But there's not enough to like because the songs are just not very memorable, so it's not a comeback album. And then later on, they released Carnival of Souls, which was the companion piece because of the song title, Carnival Circus, right? Where Bruce was in the band, and it's a grunge album. I don't like Kiss's grunge stuff. I don't like this very short grunge period in time. It just doesn't sound like Kiss to me. I'd rather listen to, as much as I don't like it, I'd rather listen to Revenge and Animalize and Asylum and Crazy Nights. All right, so then you get the 2 albums with Tommy Thayer on guitar. Sonic Boom, which is trying to recapture the glory days of Rock and Roll Over, because you have the 4 faces, but now instead of in the middle, surrounded by a buzzsaw, they're all in the corner. But it's the same color scheme for the most part. I think that's what they were going for. I so wanted to like this album. The only song I like is Modern Day Delilah. And then finally, their 20th album, Monster. The only song I like is Hell or Hallelujah. I'll go on record and say I'm not a big fan of Tommy Thayer. He was in Rough Cut or Black and Blue, I forget which, and I liked him in that band. Anyway, so let's look at the different phases of Kiss. You have the Silver and Black period, which is my favorite, a combination of glam and hard rock. Then you have the disco pop that is Dynasty and Unmasked, more pop than disco. Then you have the concept, phase, which is a one and done with the Elder, because Music from the Elder, because it's such a disappointment and failure. And again, the band eventually admits that. Then you have the makeup off period with Lick It Up, starting with that, then Animalized, then Asylum, then Crazy Nights, then Hot in the Shade, or whatever that's called, and Revenge, okay, and Unplugged, the reunion, right? Then you have the makeup is back on with Psycho Circus, and of course, that's a one and done. And then you have the makeup back on still, but with Thayer and with Singer. And in between there somewhere, after Psycho Circus, you get Carnival of Souls, the makeup's off. So you have the best of both worlds. You have the original lineup kind of trying to get back together with your old bandmates, and then you release Carnival of Souls with your Asylum period bandmates, if you will. Although Singer's the drummer because Eric Carr had passed on at this point, but you get my point. So you have attempts at a comeback with Revenge, with Psycho Circus, the reunion / comeback, and of course the live album Unplugged, which is a successful comeback / reunion album. So let's talk about now from a standpoint of you have 20 albums. So here's where I begin to weigh in. Is their legacy tarnished? You have 20 studio albums in all. And I would go on record, and again, this is completely subjective, I would go on record to say that only 9 of them are legendary albums. Okay? The first 3, if we're talking studio, the first 3 albums, despite their studio production engineering failings, then you have, so that's 3. Then you have Destroyer, which is 4. Rock and Roll Over, 5. Then you have Love Gun, which is 6. Creatures of the Night is 7. And then Dynasty would be 8. And then let's go back and look at albums. The 9th one would be Lick It Up would be 9. And then if we talk about solo albums, that would be the 10th with the Ace Frehley, and then 11 with the Paul Stanley. I would count half maybe. So of the 4 studio albums from 78 that, hey, let's do our own solo album thing because the record company said so, 1.5 out of 4. So, from a percentage standpoint, the whole discography is not great, and the whole solo thing is not great. Now, if we talk about live stuff, a lot of soundboard stuff, and I'm just not, as I said, on board with that. I think they're just trying to make money. They're trying to please their fans, and I do get that. They're trying to do that as well. So kudos for that. But at the same time, it's also selfish with the money. The same thing with the marketing, and I'll get to that in a minute, as I promised. So you have here, again, a really good solo album in Ace. But it would have been great if the other 3 solo albums would have been stellar. That would have really cemented their legacy even more. It would have helped, definitely. So you have in between, say, 9 and 11 really wonderful albums in the studio realm. Because I'll concede that despite the fact that I don't like Revenge and Psycho Circus, there are who concede that they are great. So we can give it 11 out of 20. Now, as far as live album goes, you have Kiss Alive 2, Unplugged, The Vegas. And as far as everything else goes, you can keep it. I for the most part, I'm still on the fence about this. So, are they King Crimson or Steve Hackett where live album, or David Bowie live album after live album, or Rush is stellar? No, but you really got some wonderful live stuff here. So make of that what you will. I think they're, despite the fact that you don't have live album after live album after live album that's stellar, these 4 albums are great enough to boost their legacy to some degree. Now, as I mentioned, part of the problem with Kiss is the fact that Paul and Gene ran too much of the show and not allowing Ace and Peter enough input. Again, eventually the Beatles come around and recognize George's evolution in a positive sense as a singer-songwriter. Okay. So the Rolling Stones factor with just 2 people running the show is, you've heard stories of how the Stones invited the singer of Humble Pie to audition, and he said, well, you have to stay in the back. You can't mingle with us on stage. And he got into it. He, got into the emotion and the feeling and the rhythm, and his emotion got into his playing, as he's wont to do. Steve Marriott. And he starts moving forward. He wants to, hey, come up to Mick and, say whatever. And they fired him. I said, nope, you're not getting no audition. So it's just crazy. So things like that. And not enough tunes vocally from Ace and Peter is part of the problem. That would have really cemented a legacy, I think, even more. And I'm not saying they had to share half the vocal duties, but give them some more vocal duties, if you will. So if we talk about the money factor, the marketing factor, this was cool at first with the Kiss Army, right? The lunch boxes, the patches, the newsletters, the T-shirts, the board games, the list, the Kiss conventions, right? That's kind of cool. Getting married at a Kiss convention, kind of cool. But after a long look at this, I realized that after pretty much the black and silver era, once you get into really the hair metal era, Kiss sang so many things from, say, I would say starting with the Lick It Up period through and including The Monster, the end of their career with respect to studio albums, that they've gone on record to say so many things. And I'm just going to give one example because there's like 20 of them. And one of them is, we'll never do backing tracks. And lo and behold, what is Kiss known for the last decade or longer? That is doing backing tracks. And so you're not authentic live. And some people don't mind that. Well, I do. And I think that definitely tarnishes their reputation. So there's a movie, and I'm going to explain this and how it connects to Kiss in a minute. There's a movie called Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains, and Diane Ladd plays a singer guitarist in a punk band, a fictional punk band. And she's got this weird, creepy makeup with this pointy mascara here. And Bruce Dern, Laura Dern is in the band in the movie, and I forget the other member of the band. And they have this punk band that they open for, or they open for them. And the member of the punk band's kind of a jerk. And when he gets on stage, his turn, they're headlining. He tells the audience that the Stains are a fraud because the only thing they care about is selling the merchandise and the glitter and the glam. No, they open up. Excuse me, I had it wrong. And so when the Stains get on stage after them, a young girl in the audience takes the makeup that she bought because she's a fan and throws it at Diane Lane's character on stage. So I don't know if this was it's obviously a knock about the marketing problem where bands are too much into the gimmick and the money, and let's face it, we know by now that the problem with Kiss is that there were more Gene and Paul from the get-go. It's a fact. Were about marketing themselves, and to a degree that makes sense. You want to market yourself, to not have people steal your money, your manager, your accountant, that kind of thing. And they were smart. You should make money from doing this. But it took too much of a precedence over pleasing the fans. And so that theme from the movie where the girl throws her makeup is, that it should be about the music. The music should come first and foremost, not bamboozling us with gimmicks and hence the makeup kind of thing. And then, of course, the movie ends with the three members of the band singing one of their most famous songs, and they're all without makeup, and the music is great. I love that soundtrack. Anyway, and so there's the Avatar controversy. There's the controversy around Paul and Gene saying once, we retire for good, whenever that's going to be, that we're going to have four members take our place forever. And when those four members are done, then someone's going to, and the Kiss is going to live on forever through the Avatar and through whoever takes their place. And how ridiculous. It's that athlete type ego where you can't, and I get it, you don't want to retire. But at some point you have to, because you don't have the vocal talent in Paul's case, or you can't play anymore because of arthritis, or whatever the case may be. Quit when you're out on top. That's another thing they said. That they said we would quit when we would go out on top. They've not gone out on top. Here we are again with another reunion, out of retirement, if you will, the third time I think. So my friend Travis, he likes Kiss, and he told me once at a function, a social function, barbecue, whatever, that he got to see Kiss in their original makeup and the original lineup in the arena. I said, well, what tour was it? And he told me, he said, I hate to tell you, I hate to break the news to this, buddy, but you had Tommy Thayer in Ace's makeup and Eric Singer and Peters. He's like, oh, you're kidding me. I said, no. He said, well, they were great. I said, well, that's great, but I'm sorry to disappoint you, but you did not see the original band, the original lineup. And he was so upset by that. I didn't mean to burst his bubble, but I wanted to let him know that, hey, this was after the Psycho Circus tour or whatever. So you have the money controversy, you have the Avatar controversy, you can't let go of the fact that, you need to move on from your glory days, from, when you could still sing, when you could still play, that kind of thing. You have the makeup controversy. I'm going to go on record and say that while Peter and Ace gave rights, in Peter's case, he gave his rights to the band, and Ace leased his rights to the band, something to that effect. They shouldn't have done that, so they're partly to blame. But Tommy and Eric should not have... on one hand, I cannot blame Tommy and Eric for playing the roles of the Catman and the Spaceman. What would you have done? Because you're trying to make a living. Yet at the same time, let's face it, Paul and Gene would have found someone else to do it and fired them, right, if they hadn't. So I can't blame Tommy and Eric. But at the same time, it's disappointing that they didn't speak up or say, no, let's keep the makeup off and be the Kiss we were. Because I think it's an insult in many ways to Peter and Ace. And in addition, it's trying to recapture the glory days and relive past glories that are long dead. Because Tommy and Eric are not Peter and they're not Ace. So the backing tracks, Paul not being able to sing, I think that there's nothing wrong with retiring. You know, like the athlete who, think of Brett Favre, right, who refused to retire and he gets embarrassed when the Saints, the Saints were to blame with Bountygate. Don't want to get all political sports-wise, but yeah, the Saints were to blame for taking a dirty hit on Brett Favre. But Brett Favre should have retired and quit when he should have, right? That kind of thing. So that's essentially what I'm saying here. So KISS will live on with new members, etc. So the overall stings, if you will, in their legacy is the gimmick money factor. Not the gimmick, I'm sorry. The gimmick, well, the gimmick was charming and lovable in the original lineup. But the makeup or gimmick controversy by returning to the makeup, it's like, okay, makeup, no makeup, then makeup again. So here's another example of where Gene says, you know, we're not going to put the makeup back on because we don't want Giraffe Man or Ostrich Man. And lo and behold, because money comes a-calling, they put the makeup back on. Okay. Same thing with we're going to retire. Nope, we're coming back out. We're going to retire. We'll come back out. We're going to retire 3 times, right? So 4 or 5 different things are, again, a bunch of them. So I've talked about 3 or 4 things where the Kiss has said, we'll never do this, backing tracks, whatever, and they do it. So they're not true to their word. Again, the Avatar, okay, backing tracks, overall lackluster discography, okay. All right, so is their legacy tarnished? Is their legacy besmirched? Is their legacy, what's the phrase I want to use here? Is their legacy blemished? Those 3 words. And to what degree? I'm going to say it's tarnished badly. Now, overall, the band has a legacy with respect to what I've showed you before. This is a positive component of their legacy. This is not. This is not. Positive. Positive. Definitely positive. You betcha. You betcha. Polarizing as it is, positive. Positive. The best. And then the first 3 albums, positive. So, of this positive stack, these are iconic, these are legendary, these are legacy albums that will forever go down in history as legacy albums. The original lineup is a legacy band, is a legacy act, plus the few albums that come after that without Ace and Peter, like Creatures of the Night. But I think, and again, subjective opinion only, once we're in the wake of Creatures of the Night, because of all the things that I've said, the money factor, the hypocrisy, the going back on what they said they would do or not do, the Avatar, KISS lasting forever, and essentially a discography that at best is 50% amazing. Okay, that's the least of my concerns, because how many bands like Deep Purple, Uriah Heep, even Rush to some extent, the back half of their discography isn't as good as the first. That's really the nature of the beast. So that's really not much of a factor, if at all. But overall, the band in its heyday is a legacy band, untarnished. But overall, the whole history of the band, the whole discography of the band, because of, I'm sorry, not discography, but the history of the band, because of the lying and the hypocrisy and the greed and what was done to Ace and Peter, and the, I don't want to say laughable, but the makeup controversy with Tommy and Eric on doing the makeup, I just thought was an insult. I'm gonna go on record in saying that their legacy is definitely tarnished badly. Are they still a legendary act? Absolutely, but overall, that legacy is still tarnished. This is just one person's humble opinion. Only you can decide if, in your opinion, and this should be obvious, of course it is, only you can decide if you think that their legacy is tarnished and to what degree. Thank you for watching. Take care. God bless.